Hello again. So today I want to discuss with you how you can make a saw out of a Silky blade, the Pocketboy, and a Cobra Knipex XS. First, I believe the reason will be obvious, but if it isn't, there are two main reasons. One is convenience. This is an EDC for most people. This is the smallest Silky blade you can have, and it's actually pocket size. So you can also have that with you without too much discomfort. Yeah, that would be one thing. The second thing is obviously weight. So let's get the weight part out of the picture here. If I take the scale and have the Gumboy on the scale, it's 423 grams with the sheet. If I only take the saw, it's 291 grams, so still quite heavy. Now I agree that this is not the Pocketboy, which is shorter and obviously lighter, but this is the, if I have to only have one saw, I will be taking this one with me in the woods. Maybe the yellow one, the big boy, sometimes does a better job, but most of the time with what you need to do in the woods, that's enough blade right there. This will do the trick in a survival scenario or in a everyday carry scenario. And everyday carry, most of the time you may use a saw for the lumber. Yeah, so 2x2, 2x4, stuff like that, 4x4, this will be able to manage that. So this is 33 grams blade plus the sleeve, and if I add the rest of the components, I will get 127, so less than half the weight. And that should be enough reason for most people to be interested in at least having the option of doing something like this. Now, one thing you want to consider will be the fact that you have to preserve the packaging as a pocket sleeve, so make sure you don't abuse it. You see that it tends to stick sometimes, so you have to take your time when putting it in and out there, and just cut a little portion on the very top there to allow you to put it in and out, because this will be your protective sleeve for it if you want to have it in a pocket. And then there are some things that you have to keep in mind, and I will try to show you. So I don't have a new blade here, but the main difference between this one, and I have a video how I used one of these blades with the Cobra XS to cut some wood. It's a short video, but what makes this work without any intervention is the fact that it's actually flat on the very back there, and that allows it to rest at pretty much the same angle on the Cobra's jaw, lower jaw. Yeah, so this is why I can use, as it comes from the factory, a blade like that with the plier without any modification. Now when it comes to the Pocketboy, this, as you can see from the factory, it comes round there, so you actually have to grind down yourself a flat surface and at the proper angle in order to make it work with the Cobra. Yeah, so this also will give you the opportunity to choose how much of an angle you want the saw to be in the end, because you will be grinding the blade according to your preference. But you do have to grind that down, so you do need to have at least a diamond file, if nothing else, to be able to do that. Yeah, a grinder will be the ideal situation. So that will be one thing. Now, because you don't have the locking mechanism the saw has that will grip the blade here, the only thing that will think this open and performing will be friction. So you do have to be able to apply enough friction on the blade to prevent it from moving. It will rest against the Cobra in the back, so you cannot move it upwards, but if you don't have enough friction, it can actually close on you if the blade is pinched in the wood you are cutting and you are trying to forcefully remove it. Yeah, so you don't want that, because the saw cuts are some of the nastiest out there. If you manipulate the saw in such a way, you should always make sure that you grip close to the pivot part, because this has a notch there that will prevent you from injuring, from getting an injury by stopping it with your finger. Yeah, so second thing you'll have, you'll need will be a good enough screw, and I recommend get some stainless parts for this, because being in the outdoors you'll be using it mostly on water situation, yeah, on snow underground, or maybe after the rain or during the rain, because one of the things you need a saw for is to be able to cut a piece of wood with a large diameter, enough of it to be able to split it and take the middle part, which most likely will be dry, to be able to start a fire. So stainless helps. Yeah, then the next component will be a washer. So you will need two large washers for that friction that you need there, and you can see that right off the bat it will not fit properly in there. Yeah, as they come, when you buy them, you will not be able to fit that. If you want to fit it and open the plier a little bit and grip it just with the tip of the plier, then it will fit, but then you don't have the proper retention you need. Yeah, so what you want is that screw to rest in the gap there, and that will not be able to be taken out, especially since you will also be gripping the plier. Naturally, you don't have to make any extra effort. Naturally, when you saw in the sewing motion, you tend to put pressure on your handle, and that will be grip on the plier. Yeah, so what you need to do is also grind down that washer to such an extent that it will match very nicely the jaw, the lower jaw of the Cobra there. Yeah, and once you have that achieved, then you can put your blade on there, and then you can put the other washer, which doesn't need to be grinded down, because it will be over that direction and change in the plier. Yeah, so it will not interfere with the jaw in any way. It will go actually on top of it. And then everything else you need to do is to actually add a butterfly nut, and I prefer T-nuts or butterfly nuts or whatever, more like a three-dimensional nut, because that will also act as a finger guard for you. So you may tighten it until it's tight and leave it as such. What I prefer is to actually turn the screw on the other side until this is kind of perpendicular, so my hand will rest against the butterfly like that, not like this. So you can play with it just a little bit, rotate it, and see when you are able to achieve that configuration, and once it's tightened, it is in there, so there is nothing else you need to do to this. Yeah, you can actually put some pressure on it and sew quite quickly to the material. And it's also very pocketable, very user friendly, and it has, this is one of the reasons for which I chose this blade, it has the same teeth as the bigger blade, so it's the same 6.8 tooth per inch as the 240 Gunboy, and that's a very efficient saw, so it's a very quick saw. So even though this is shorter, it will be just as efficient as the bigger blade. The advantage will be that you can actually have this in your pocket. Try not to use smaller washers if you can, that some that will fit in there, you can, but as I told you, if it gets clamped in a piece of wood, then when you try to pull it out, if it will be moving, you may actually injure yourself because you don't have enough friction with smaller washers. Yeah, so use the largest washers you can find. Now these that I have bought from my local hardware store are, I will tell you just a second. So this guy will be 31.78 millimeters, 31.80. So yeah, and the inner diameter for this one is 7.26 millimeters. So, and the thickness will be 1.26 millimeters. So that's what I was able to find locally, and I use this. Now you can use those waved washers that are also used by the Silky Pivot here, if you have them or if you can find them. Those are designed to put a bit more pressure and distribute it even more evenly on the blade, but from my testing, this works quite well. So I've been using, not with the Pocketboy, but with the bigger blade, the system for a few years now, and it never failed, so I never got any injury, especially since normally you will be gripping here, and even if this tends to move, the part that will make contact with the hand will be just that, which is not dangerous. Yeah, and yeah, that will be pretty much it. One more thing I want to mention with this before it will get a video longer than it has to be. Keep in mind that this blade is advertised as 130 millimeters, but that will be the cutting edge. Yeah, so if you look, the cutting edge is 13 millimeters, 5 inches and something there, and the entire blade length will be 6.5 inch or 16.5 millimeters. So keep that in mind when you are planning for it. I'll tell you this because there is the Pocketboy 170, which is just a bit longer. However, when you add the part that is outside the toothy part of the blade, that will be too long for most pockets. So if you want to have something pocketable, go with the 130 and you will be just fine. And you will be able to cut logs 130 millimeters in diameter. If you have a good technique, maybe even wider, a bit larger diameter than that. You have to use the triangle method. But other than that, this is it. So easy to do, everybody wants to have, and the reason for which I have both washers on the outside of the pliers and on both sides of the blade is that for once I want to have the friction to hold the blade in place. Secondly, I want to be able to properly grip the screw at the very back there. And this way I don't need to use a screwdriver to hold it in place, because just by clamping the pliers, I will put enough pressure on the back of the screw to prevent it from turning when I'm trying to tighten the butterfly knot. So this is it. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. Have fun doing this mod and using it. And yeah, be safe outdoors. Have a good one.